Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Developers Cafe podcast. In this episode, I'm in conversation with Harsh Mishra. We talk about GSoC, proposals, contributions, things to keep in mind. So if you're applying for GSoC this year, then make sure to watch this episode completely to make the most out of it. Also, please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Alright then, enjoy this one. Hey Harsh, finally good to see you out of Twitter. Welcome to the show and how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm also doing great. So Harsh, can you just please tell the audience about yourself, a brief short intro?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Harsh. Currently, I'm working as a software development engineer intern at HackerRank. I guess most of you who might be practicing data structures, algorithms, and competitive coding might be aware about HackerRank as a coding platform. So, I pretty much work on the editor that you all must be familiar with, and I also work on like the platform team, which pretty much manages the scalability and the reliability of the HackerRank as a platform. Apart from that, I am a Google Summer of Code organization administrator at Mojo Global, and I'm also the mentor for the Google Season of Dogs program. So, Mojo Global basically develops tools around tracking and managing greenhouse gas emissions from the land use sector. And I basically contribute as a voluntary community manager. Apart from that, I'm pretty interested in web, DevOps, and a bit of WebAssembly and like low level programming, but I'm still exploring those parts. And if you're interested in any of these, or like you want to get started with open source or any of the other stuff, you can feel free to like reach out to me.
Awesome. So Harsh, I want to know from you to start off, what is
Hmm.
GSoC? Like everyone can Google it, everyone can find out what is GSoC. But
Yeah.
from Harsh, what is GSoC?
So, from my perspective, Google Summer of Code is just a launchpad to help you get started with open source. That's it. A lot of people, like I have seen in my own college life, they try to treat Google Summer of Code as some sort of a goal that needs to be achieved.
Hmm.
And it is quite a goal as well. It is like a career milestone that a very few people are able to achieve. But it should not be treated as just a goal. It should be treated as an enabler that can help you get started with your open source journey. So if you take a look, most of the folks who are selected into Google Summer of Code, they are just students like you, like me, like the others, and they have a lot of passion towards contributing to the software that everyone wants to use, and also building their skills, building their portfolio, and getting some really sweet stipend. So Google Summer of Code basically allows you to get started with open source and with an open source community in general. So you get to work on one of the projects. You get to learn a lot of new things that you might not get a chance of having a shot at unless and until you get into the corporate world. And you can also get some like really good compensation that you can use to give a treat to yourself. After Google Summer of Code, you can use the leverage that you have created for variety of opportunities. Like you can go and
Hmm.
apply for different companies. There are a lot of companies that basically take Google Summer of Code as a benchmark for selecting interns and full times. You can use it to like further contribute to the community itself. Like more recently, the organization with whom I did my Google Summer of Code, I'm also managing their Google Season of Dogs program as well. So there are like a lot of different ways in which you can contribute to the community, and sometimes you can also get grants for the kind of the work that you're doing. So if I take an example, the organization where I did my Google Season of Dogs, that's yet another open source program by Google. So that organization has basically offered me an expanding market opportunity grant, which comes from the government of Canada. So using open source, you can sincerely develop your portfolio, and having a Google Summer of Code tag can be really helpful for you to get started. It is completely fine if you're not participating in Google Summer of Code, especially for students in India. This summer program is not at all very conducive because a lot of college classes are going on, and our summer breaks are not that long. But you can like still contribute to open source. You can still upskill with a community, and you can still do the kind of the work that you can do in Google Summer of Code. So yeah, I guess that answer helps.
I'm glad you brought up the points. Like some folks
Mhm.
feel of GSoC as a goal, while some feel of it as a process. So,
Yeah.
what should be your right mindset while applying to GSoC? Should you look for the tag? Should you look for the stipend? Or should you just look for the growth opportunity?
So if I come to the stipend part, if you're like freelancing, like for some sort of a company, or if you're doing some kind of contract work, you can easily earn almost twice or thrice that of Google Summer of Code. Uh, for most of the folks, Google Summer of Code is your first professional experience. That was not in my case. I had already done like a few internships at some multinational companies before. But for some of the other folks who might be in their first year or second year, it was their first professional opportunity. So yes, the stipend was really great for their perspective. So my perspective would be like to completely go into the Google Summer of Code from the perspective of growing as an open source contributor. So being very honest, everyone wants to engineer new stuff. Someone wants to become a software engineer, someone wants to become a developer relations engineer, someone wants to become something else. So with the help of Google Summer of Code, you can navigate across a lot of different domains. Do you like doing web development? You can like try searching for organizations that are looking for those kind of skills. Do you like low level programming? This is something that not a lot of people do in India. But if you are interested in that, you can look out for organizations that are looking for low level development skills. If you're interested in, let's say, some other fields like maybe astronomy, science, biology, there are so many organizations for that. You can easily pick up an organization, you can start contributing, and slowly you can develop some sort of a domain experience. So almost a year back, I approached one of the organizations that I still work with. It's called Mojo Global. Mojo Global pretty much works in climate change, the carbon science, and all of that. I, as a tech student, had no idea about it. But after working with them for almost a year, I have started developing some domain expertise on that. So this is one of the things that you can easily pick up while you're working with an open source organization. So my perspective would be to like leave this stipend, leave the tag, just go in for the experience and see what are the exact things that you can learn out of it and you can gain out of it. There has been like many cases where some of my friends got into Google Summer of Code. Unfortunately, they could not pass it. And let me tell you, passing Google Summer of Code is more harder. Like it's harder than actually getting selected into it. So if you are like failed in that, or if you have like miscalculated your miscalculated your skills or miscalculated the project difficulty, then it would surely like end bad for you. So don't go for the tag exactly, go for the learning and see what exactly you can get out of it.
Perfect. So Harsh, like many beginner folks feel like open source and GSoC, these sort of programs are for seasoned open source contributors. They as beginners don't have much of a role to play. So what advice would you give to them? Or what you have to say to them?
So if it comes to Google Summer of Code, I guess Google Summer of Code is less about like getting selected into Google Summer of Code is less about technical skills, and it is more about consistency, patience, and how much eager you are to learn. That's the only thing. Let me tell you what exactly happens whenever Google Summer of Code program happens. I have seen this for almost 3 years now. In 2020, I wanted to be a participant. So I just joined multiple communities, and the one thing that was pretty constant is like everyone was flowing in the Slack workspace, the Gitter channel. Discord was not very popular at that time, but there was IRC. Everyone was just flowing in, and they had the same kind of format. Like, hey, I am XYZ. I am from this particular college. I have these kind of skill set, without any mention of how these skill sets will actually help the project. And I just want to contribute. That's it. They asked for the help, but now no one had an idea like what kind of skill set do they have, how can they basically plug in their contributions, because even the mentors and the maintainers don't have that much bandwidth. So like if I talk from my organization admin perspective, you have like literally almost 50 to 100 students coming in like during one GSoC. You simply cannot like give like specific time to them and make sure that they feel comfortable and they get the right task assigned to them so that we can gauge their skills. You have to take the initiative yourself, and this is where most of the students actually fail. So that's the point where I say about consistency. You really need to be consistent. If you find a project that you are really liking, that you really have a liking for, just go ahead, start researching on the project, come up with an idea. Instead of sharing your introduction, just share what you have understood from the project and what you can actually do. So like in my organization where I'm mentoring for a project, one of the contributors actually sent me a complete rough proposal of the entire project. He did not share any introduction, so he did not like ask me like what kind of things I can contribute to or what kind of things I can learn. He just shared me a proposal. So we had a quick meet, we discussed like what can be improved, and that was it. That was a very good impression. So in a similar way, you really need to like show the initiative, the ownership while you're working with a project. And yes, learning factor is there. If you're not learning new stuff, then eventually you will fail at some point or the other. You might fail at the GSoC selection phase itself, or you might fail in the GSoC itself. So you really need to show like whatever you're picking up, you're actually learning it. So like in my own Google Summer of Code last year, I was kind of a Python plus web developer person, but I picked up a project that was in low level kernel engineering. That was something that was way beyond my league back then. But then again, like I traded upon my skills. I showed like I have the capability of doing that and ability to pull this off. And this is what constituted to my selection and then passing Google Summer of Code pretty successfully.
Got it. So, like for folks listening to us, what should be your goal while applying to GSoC, and how should you apply? Should you focus more on the proposal side, or should you focus more on the contribution side?
Mhm. So that's a pretty interesting question, and this is something that every organization has a different approach for. If I talk about some of the mainstream organizations, like let me just talk about, let's say, Mozilla. Mozilla is not participating this time though. But if I talk about like some bigger organizations like NumFocus, CNCF, they focus a lot upon your contributions, and this is for a good reason. So let me explain a scenario. Like you are an org admin and you just like got 10 proposals for your project. How exactly are you going to judge like who is the best person for this job? Let us say we just like vet out those 3 proposals that were very lazily written. People like literally just copy pasted stuff and they just sent it to you. You throw them out, but still you have like 7 proposals. You have no means to like interview them. Google doesn't allow us to interview folks. We cannot interview folks. For most of them, we might not have even worked with them. So how exactly are we going to make sure that this particular person is going to stick with us for the next 3 months? And how exactly are we going to make sure that this person is dedicating this much amount of time? So this is something where most of the organizations like want to play safe. They don't want to like bet on a person whom they don't know much about. Especially for big organizations that take multiple students, like almost 7 to 8 or maybe even 12 to 14 students. So in that case, doing prior contributions is the one big thing. So if you have like at least like a few PRs merged, few quality contributions merged, that can at least show the maintainer that you have the capability to pull this off. And you might not just leave out after getting selected. This has happened like a few times. A few of my friends got selected. They were like in party mood for the community bonding phase. After that, no contributions, nothing. And the first evaluation came, everyone was failed. So you really need to show like you have the commitment for it, you need to be dedicated for it and all of that. Now coming to some other organizations, like my own organization Metacall, where I'm a mentor, and some other organizations like CC Extractor. Like these particular organizations focus upon assessments as well. They are pretty sure that their code bases are fairly complex, and students might not be able to work on them like in just a period of like 4 to 5 weeks. So in this case, they will just hand out over like some sort of an assessment, like maybe a programming assignment, or maybe like writing a code sample that can help them judge that this person is really fit for the job. So again, like I have slightly different views about that, but this is also like a potent way of like testing students out and checking if they have the right skills. In other organizations, it is purely proposal based. If you have contribution, well and good, but the main like selection will actually come from the proposal itself. So you really need to like write a very good proposal, like highlight all the technical details, and also what kind of profile do you have. Like in Python Software Foundation, you really need to make one single PR to be qualified, and then you will be judged on the basis of your proposal. So these are some of the things that you can basically take a look at. The best way of judging like what organization is selecting on what basis is to just go and check out on their ideas list. Most of them might have mentioned it clearly, whether they require prior contributions or not, or whether they are judging purely on the basis of proposal and all of that. In the other organization where I am administering, like Mojo Global, we basically have some first steps. So everyone who needs to be qualified for this, they have to follow these first steps before they can be actually considered for the project. So just like make sure that you are in sync with what the org is looking for, and then it will be just a piece of cake for you if you are like really matching the project requirements.
Got it. So Harsh, like you mentioned, some of your friends got selected and then failed at the first the first checkpoint
Evaluate.
for
Yeah.
first evaluation. Yeah. So Can you please elaborate more on that? Like, what do you need to do to get evaluated correctly, and what should you keep in mind? Like, you should not fall behind others.
Yeah. So if I remember, like during last year's GSoC, we had this community bonding phase. So once you get selected, like I guess for me it was like around May 16 or 17. I don't exactly remember the date, but it was within this range. Then we have a community bonding phase, which goes for like 3 weeks. And this is a pretty chilled out phase. Like no one exactly works during this phase. Everyone is like posting on LinkedIn, bragging about themselves, like developing their personal brand and all of that. I would really say don't make the mistakes that me and most of the other folks did. Don't use the community bonding phase to like just chill out and like do all the extra stuff, but make sure that you're putting in the right research for the project. So in case for most of the organizations where you have already been contributing, you are familiar with the code base, you're familiar with the workflows, the processes and everything, and you can just start coding from day one itself. But in other organizations, like you might need to check the technical feasibility of your project as well. So while I was doing my Google Summer of Code, I got selected, and the very next day my mentor mentioned to me like your project might be technically infeasible. We might not have a way to like actually get it done. So immediately we started like working on finding different ways out, different methodologies out around how we can re-engineer the solution that I had proposed in the proposal, and how we can have a realistic shot at it for the next 10 weeks once the coding period starts. So use these 3 weeks, like no need to code actually, but just use these 3 weeks for planning and implementation. So design some of this stuff, like maybe develop some POCs, so that once you start, you really have a very firm base of like doing stuff. And once like the coding phase is started, you might have already mentioned how you're gonna work for the next 10 weeks, like week by week, on your timeline. So just stick to that. My best suggestion would be like just wake up in the morning, start coding in the morning itself. Don't keep it for like evening or night, because mornings are like usually fresh for me, especially, but for others it might be something else. And don't code the whole day. That's the golden point. So some of them might have classes, some of them might be looking for internships. So always like divide your time into 2 phases: one for coding when you are the most active, and one for like doing some extra stuff. Like maybe for the third year students, they might be looking for internships and all, so just prepare for that. If you are in your second year, maybe you might have some college stuff or maybe assignment, just do that, but don't get yourself burnt out. And every week just keep posting the blogs, keep taking feedback from the mentor, like maybe on a one-on-one call, so that by the end of the fifth week, when the first milestone will be reached, you are not in a limbo. So this has happened like with one of my friend. All of his work was going good. It was just in the 4th week itself that the mentor dropped a bombshell that he's not going to be passed, simply because his work was not very good according to the mentor. So don't wait for the last moment. Make sure that if your mentor has developed some sort of an issue with you or with your work, you get that cleared out very, very early. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So like Harsh, for a junior developer, it's obvious that they will face challenges while contributing. They may get stuck somewhere, and then they will reach out to other folks in the community. So I want to know, like, how should folks reach out? Does a simple hey suffice, or you should give your problem, give your research, and then expect them to reply back to you?
I guess you have already given the answer. It's the second one. For those folks who are not familiar with this concept, you might go to a website called as knowhello.net. And it literally signifies that if you're going on a community channel, and if you're like looking to directly message someone, just don't drop a hey, because people will see it. They will think like, okay, this person has dropped me a message. What should I reply to them? What are the things that they're looking help for, or what are the things that they want to talk about? So it is completely like a blurred concept for them. They don't exactly know what they should be doing, and it might just delay the response. It might not get you anything productive. So instead of that, if you're like looking for a solution for your problem, just describe the problem. That's the very first thing. Describe the solutions that you have implemented, because if you're not describing the solution, people, like the very first instant for any developer, if they see a problem, they will copy paste this and they will check out Stack Overflow or maybe GitHub. But if you have at least done that first exercise, they will know that these solutions don't exactly work. So they might like look further deep into it. And third, like, what is the significance of this particular problem? Like, is this problem really something that you're completely blocked at? Or is this something like you can like maybe do it yourself, but since you don't have enough time, you want to delegate it to someone else, what exactly it is, and what kind of expertise does this person have to actually contribute to like solving this problem. Mention all of these, like hardly like a few, like 7 to 10 lines. Just send it to the person and wait for the response. This is exactly how like you can engage with the community. One of the other things that the Google Summer of Code admins have to like write on their proposal is how much the contributors are engaging with the community. So you should not be just engaging with the mentors and the admins. You should also try to engage with the community itself. Sometimes it can be like engaging with the other contributors who are working on different projects, like providing some sort of a helping hand to them to start contributing. In other cases, it might be like just mentoring some junior folks, like those who have just recently came into the community. So maybe just create some few good first issues for them, assign to them, and provide some help if they are not able to solve it out, because this will exactly show that you're taking ownership in the community and you can start growing within it. So maybe you just came in as a contributor. After some time, you will become a GSoC contributor. After some time, you might become a maintainer, maybe a mentor, maybe an admin. You can do a lot of things within your community, and that's the best part about it.
Also, Harsh, like I have seen many folks going from student in GSoC to a mentor the next year. So I want to know from you, like, what is the journey of GSoC for a student? Does it end when the program ends, or you stay connected even after that period?
It completely depends upon the student itself. So as I mentioned in one of my previous answers before, most of the students who are doing GSoC, they also do a parallel stuff. It's completely normal. While I was doing my Google Summer of Code, I was doing Google Season of Docs as well. And after 2 months of the Google Summer of Code program, I got selected for an internship at Quantsite. For those folks who don't know, then Quantsite is a data consultancy firm in US, and we pretty much like work open source over there. So it is completely fine if you have like other commitments, and once you complete your project, it's your choice. Like you want to stay there, you want to leave, or you want to like just shut down the communication for at least a few months before you are stabilized. Because transitioning like from your third year to final year, or maybe if you're a final year student, you might be like looking out for a job as well if you don't have already one. So this is a very like troublesome period, and you might want to like prioritize time to the things that you actually care about. So in that case, it's completely fine if you don't want to continue, or you want to continue after some time. So a lot of my friends like discontinued once like their project got over, but some of them actually continued. They continued like mentoring the project, maintaining it, creating issues for them, reviewing the PRs and all of that. After some time, like once the admins think like you have taken some critical ownership, and now you have enough experience to actually like mentor other candidates, they will just like make you a GSoC mentor. That's pretty much it. uh, from the perspective of a Google org admin, having more mentors is actually much more beneficial for the organization. So showing that our organization has like 8 mentors, 10 mentors, 20 mentors, it will make sure that the contributor will be getting all sort of help. So usually like we try to keep like 2 mentors per contributor, and if we are like proposing some 7 to 8 different projects, we might like look for like more than 10 mentors at some time. So the best case in the best situation in this case would be like just to get the previous GSoC students and make them a mentor, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Awesome advice, Harsh. I love chatting to you. I'm sure that the folks listening to us will get some idea and get some motivation and inspiration to apply to GSoC with the right mindset and the right approach. So finally, can you play my speed test? All right, Harsh. Thanks for joining us. Any closing notes you have for the community?
I would say like in the open source we have a lot of helpful people, so don't fret out if you're not able to figure out something. Just reach out to us for help, and we would be more than happy to like provide our assistance on this.